You are listening to the Keep the Weight Off podcast with Dr. Angela, episode number 34.
Welcome to the Keep the Weight Off podcast, where we bust all the dieting myths and discover not just how to lose weight, but more importantly, how to keep it off. We go way beyond the food, and we use science and psychology to give you strategies that work. And now your host, Dr. Angela Zechmann.
So, welcome back, everyone. Marchelle and I are so happy to have everyone listening this week. We just wrapped up our registration for Journey Beyond Weight Loss, and we're super excited to welcome in all the new students. If you wanted to join, but you missed the deadline, don't worry, because we'll be opening it up again in a few months. So that's something to look forward to. And it's going to be an expanded program, much even better than it already is. So I'm excited. And I'm excited to get our new group moving through. So there's lots and lots and lots to learn about lasting weight loss. So, okay.
Right, like all you cool people can still get in on this. So whoever's listening.
Yeah, exactly.
Sign up.
So sign up. So today we wanted to talk about alcohol because I get this question a lot. I'm sure you do too. A lot of people wonder if their drinking could be holding them back and preventing weight loss. And so I really wanted to give this a pretty thorough investigation. And we've got a lot to share with you on this. I actually did quite a bit of research in preparation for this podcast. So there'll be a little science mixed in here too. So
and I got life skills to add to this because this is a topic that's very near and dear to my heart.
Okay.
So yeah,
that's great.
You go with the science, and I'll just add, like all my life experiences.
Okay. All right. The question becomes: is drinking alcohol going to prevent weight loss? And the short answer is probably.
Probably.
But of course, it depends on how much you're drinking, right? So
Right.
If you have a glass of wine on a Saturday night, you're out at a restaurant, that's not likely to hinder you. But if you're drinking 2 or 3 glasses of wine every night or more, or a bottle every night, or drinking, even more than that, then yes, your drinking habits are going to get in the way of your weight loss efforts. So this is what I want you to understand, because here's how it happens. The first thing that you want to understand is that alcohol is actually empty calories. So there's the calories without any nutritional value in it. A glass of wine has about 90 calories. So 2 glasses is 180 calories, right? That's a lot of food. An ounce and a half of liquor also has about 90 calories. A beer is about 150 calories. So beer actually has more calories than liquor or wine. So I would avoid beer at all costs, frankly, because it has maltose in it, which has got a very high glycemic index. Now, there are some light beers that will be less, but I just avoid beer. I just don't like it anyway. So it's no problem for me. Now, what I want you to understand about alcohol is that it gets metabolized in the liver and it gets burned for energy in preference to fat. So if your body has a choice between burning fat and burning alcohol, it's going to burn the alcohol instead of burning the fat. That's not what we want. Really? Think about it. That's a big bummer. So, and I've also heard that in some situations, each molecule of alcohol that you drink gets converted to a molecule of triglyceride fat. So it could actually replace the fat that you've burned. So I heard that at a conference, and I can't seem to find a specific scientific paper to back that up, but I just want you to know this was an expert I respect. So either the alcohol is going to get metabolized before fat, or it's going to get turned into fat. So let's just make it really, really simple here. When you're drinking alcohol, you're not going to burn fat. And depending on your biochemistry, you may be actually making fat from the alcohol you drink. So that's why I say, yeah, you might want to watch the amount of alcohol you're drinking. So any questions about that, Marchelle?
No, not at all. I mean, I wasn't under the impression that like alcohol and sugar metabolize in your system the same way? Like your liver doesn't know the difference?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And
Yep. It's
so,
not sugar per se. It's
oh,
fructose, which is a
it's
form of
fructose.
sugar.
Okay.
Fructose
All
and
right.
alcohol get metabolized through the same biochemical pathways. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. All right. Second thing that I want everybody to understand is that alcohol will inhibit what's called restraint. Now, restraint is a term that's used in the world of eating disorders to sort of indicate your ability to avoid overeating. So, you express restraint when you're able to just eat a certain amount of food and not overeat. But when you're drinking, you're more susceptible to food cues that are around you. So, for example, you go to a restaurant and you think you're not going to have the dessert, but then you have a glass or two of wine, and then the dessert menu comes around and you can't say no, or you decide you don't want to say no, right? So
Or like
that's
even the alcohol that goes along with, like, okay, for me, margaritas and Mexican food, and then you're doing the chips
Mhm.
and dips, because how many of us went out, to Taco Tuesday and,
Mhm.
had margaritas with our tacos, because it all goes together. So,
Exactly.
because like everyone loved Taco Tuesdays when I was
Mhm.
drinking, and I did too. And like I said, and I would eat a lot more chips because, you're not really paying attention. And then
Yeah.
margaritas full of sugar. So, I mean, that's
Yeah,
just like a double, triple whammy.
exactly. Well, they actually did a study to prove, because you can kind of notice this stuff, but unless you prove it with a scientific study, then you can't really say that this is exactly what happens. So they did do a study to prove it in 2016. And guess who they used? They used college women, undergrad college women, a captive audience.
Right.
But they did what's called a prospective case control study. So this is a best kind of study because you have people who are the cases. So some gals get the alcohol, and then other gals don't get the alcohol. So those are the controls. And it's prospective because you're not like looking backwards to find out what did they do, what had they done beforehand. You're watching them to see what they're doing. And so this is a good study. So some of the gals, they had 60 women, then they divided them into two groups. Some of them, both groups completed a food craving questionnaire before they even started. And then half of them were given a drink with alcohol in it. And the other half were given a drink that was made to taste and smell like alcohol, but didn't actually have any alcohol in it. Don't ask me what they used, but it didn't have any alcohol in
Jules. I'm just kidding.
it. Then the women completed another food craving questionnaire after their alcoholic beverages. And then after that, they were asked to taste cookies for 15 minutes. So can you guess what happened? Any ideas?
Yeah.
Based on your life experience, what do you think
I'm
happened?
sure that, the cookies were happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were eating
Well,
cookies.
those who drank alcohol definitely had a harder time with the cookies. However, there were a few women who scored very high on restraint in the questionnaires that they gave beforehand, who were actually able to continue to be careful with the sweets, even though they had the alcohol.
It's
So
kind of
there
funny.
are
I have to
some.
interject something really quick, because
Okay.
I'm thinking about, these women, and this is like pre-COVID, right? They need to do a new study on like this last year of like parents that were locked up during quarantine that were, doing homeschool with their children, who like
Yeah.
started drinking, and then the
Mhm.
only place they could go is the grocery store. So then
Yeah.
they're getting, because like, yeah, this is all great, like pre-COVID, but honestly, we have
Yeah.
had, so many patients that have come in post-COVID with,
Mhm.
like drinking issues,
Yep.
higher
Yep.
drinking issues than before.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
I
just
agree. They should
yeah.
redo this study now that, now that COVID is in the
Right,
picture.
that's what I was thinking.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, well, there's also evidence that it's not just the restraint issue, but that alcohol just makes food taste better. So you were talking about your Taco Tuesdays and the margaritas. Having the margaritas along with the chips and all the Mexican food just makes the Mexican food taste better. So you're going to end up eating more if you have alcohol. The third thing is that a lot of people drink to help them calm down so they can go to sleep. And it will help you fall asleep, but your sleep quality, if you're drinking, is not going to be very good. It's going to be quite poor, actually. And we already did a podcast on sleep and how important it is to get high quality sleep if you want to be successful at weight loss. So alcohol in that way is just one of those things that we do that actually causes horrible sleep, and that's going to slow your weight loss down. So those are three things. The last thing I want to talk about is that I find that I don't exercise as much when I'm drinking. So if I have, 2 glasses, I can do one and still get up and fine. But if I have 2 glasses of wine or 2 drinks, it's really hard for me to get up the next day. And then if I don't work out and I'm tired, my whole day is just like, it's hard to get through it. And I end up eating stuff that I otherwise wouldn't eat. I'm just not stable from a mental and psychological standpoint. And I'm just more likely to give in to cravings. So that's another piece of alcohol that can really kind of, throw a monkey wrench in your weight loss plans. So those are a few reasons why drinking alcohol can cause weight gain or prevent weight loss. Now, I want to say it does. Yeah. I'm sure there are others, but those are the major ones from my experience. Right. A lot of people feel that their brain responds to alcohol and sugar in the same way. I actually have a friend who is an alcoholic. She's been sober for 10 years now. But every now and then she sends me a text and she says, "Oh, geez, I'm drinking again." And what she means by that is that she started eating sugar. And to her, it feels the same as her alcohol cravings felt. So I have a lot of people who, notice that if they're drinking, they don't eat as much sugar, but when they stop drinking, they end up eating more sugar. And I've also heard that when people have gastric bypass surgery, they're at higher risk for alcoholism. So I looked up the studies on that too. And those are actually really fascinating. So there was a study that was published in 2017 on gastric bypass and lap band patients. And they wanted to find out how many of these people had drug and alcohol issues after the surgery. And this, again, was a prospective study. So they watched people over time. They watched them over 7 years, as a matter of fact. So they enrolled people from 10 different bariatric surgery programs around the country. So this was a robust study. And they found that within 5 years, 1 in 5 people who'd had bypass surgery developed alcoholism. And by bypass, I mean gastric bypass surgery, the Roux-en-Y gastric bypass. 1 in 5 developed alcoholism or some other substance use disorder in 5 years. The people who had lap bands were also at higher risk, but less so. So instead of 1 in 5, it was more like 1 in 10 of them developed alcohol or other substance use disorders. So,
I have not had gastric bypass surgery, but this part of our podcast is like, it's really, it hits home for me because when I quit drinking, because, I was overindulging over a period of time and it wasn't so much like I was drinking a ton. It was more like consistency, like, waiting, like, can't wait to get off work, to go home and have your beers. And my drink was White Claw. I'm not sure how many of you out there drinking it, but I know a lot of people are drinking it because, there's been times I've gone to the store and it's sold out. So I'm
White Claw sold out.
Yes. So White Claw's popular. So, I chose White Claw because in my mind, I thought, okay, well, it's because it's just boozy seltzer. There's no calories,
it's only 100 calories.
Yeah, right. So it's like,
it's
diet
flavored
beer.
seltzer water.
Yeah, right.
I drink the White Claws too. Yeah.
Diet beer. So for me, it was more consistency but also, I'm a little bit weird and I don't tend to eat when I'm drinking because I don't know, it makes me kind of feel nauseous. So I wouldn't eat. And I would, I would replace, the drinking with eating, dinner,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And that became consistent. So what happened with
Oh.
me is when I stopped drinking, all of a sudden I had like this sugar monster cravings, like from hell. I could
Oh.
not even control the
Yeah.
cravings. And like, I had quit taking, the medication, and
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was like a total shit show for me. I started eating, like stopping off on the way home. And I know a lot of it has to do with the dopamine feel good hits, because
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have like that, ooh, I'm going to tap out after work and, check out and relax. And
Mm-hmm.
so then, like, what do I do with myself? Because then what's my relax time? Like, how am I going to, what am I going to do? And then my brain was like, oh yeah, you can stop by, the store and get a bag of pretzels and a candy bar on your way home. And then,
Mm.
you can have that. And it was like working. And all of a sudden, like in this last month, the scale has just been going up and up. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? And
Yeah.
I know that, like, for me, my brain is just wired in this way that, like, alcohol and sugar, that just
Mm-hmm.
doesn't know the difference. And when
Mm-hmm.
I abstain from alcohol, then I have like these horrible cravings for sugar. And I
Yeah.
know that probably not everybody's like that, but for me, that was the case. And
Yeah.
so, I've just learned a whole lot in the last month about my body and about my brain, and
Yeah.
what I need to do, to keep myself safe in the future. I know what I'm going to be doing another 5-day sugar and flour detox.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm starting that on Monday. And so I've gotten everything, prepped for that. And if anybody wants to know what that is, I think we have that linked somewhere. Um,
Yeah. We'll put it in the
some-
show notes.
we'll put it in the show notes. But so that's like, and I feel for people who have gastric bypass if that happens, because, it's like, you don't know until you know,
Yeah.
right? You don't know this is
Mm-hmm.
what's going to happen to you. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
it's a struggle, and I'm just
Yeah.
learning a whole lot about it. And, every day I'm just trying to, become a better me. And I just
Mm-hmm.
have to realize that I'm sensitive in that way, and I have to be
Yeah.
really cautious. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because when I was doing the research, I discovered that there's this phenomenon called reward deficiency syndrome, or RDS, reward deficiency syndrome.
Mm.
It's a really interesting thing because the way they found out about it is that they noticed, these bariatric surgeons were reporting that their patients were replacing their compulsive overeating with
Yes.
other compulsive disorders
That
like
makes so much
alcohol
sense. Yes.
or gambling or drugs or compulsive shopping
Right.
or exercise. How many times have we heard people come in and they're like, I'm off the sugar, but now I'm gambling, or I'm off the sugar, but now I'm like spending money like crazy, or
Yeah.
I'm off the sugar, but I can't seem to control these other things.
Yeah. It's like
And
the
so,
transference
mm-hmm,
from, one to this dopamine hit. Like
yeah,
that's a real thing that,
yeah.
we have to be so careful of.
Yeah. So essentially what they think is going on here, they're actually calling it transfer, addiction transfer.
Yeah.
The
All
neural
right. Well,
pathways between food addiction and other addictions are really, really similar. And so what they're saying is, get this, Marchelle, overeating and obesity may actually protect people from addiction to drugs or alcohol or gambling or some of these other, really horrible addictions. Now,
oh, great. Well,
am
I'm
I going to
scared.
say, let's go back? Let's go back to eating.
I have it all.
No, we don't want to do that. We don't want to do that. But it is all about the dopamine pathways in the brain. And so the dopamine is the pleasure hormone. And what the scientists have found is that there are specific genetic defects that can disrupt dopamine function. And for some people, it's just difficult to feel pleasure unless it's like this compulsive behavior, right? So
Right.
those are the people that become susceptible to addiction or obesity. So they're thinking that it's possible that reward deficiency syndrome might be the root cause of substituting some other addiction for the food addiction that used to be prevalent. So, I think it's so fascinating. It's like the brain is saying, okay, if we're not going to get our pleasure from food, what are we going to do to get some pleasure here?
Yeah,
like,
that's
where
what my
can we
brain
get our
does.
hit
Like
from?
my brain's a tricky little jerk.
Yeah.
and
Where are we going to get our hit from? So
yeah.
yeah.
It's a struggle.
Mm-hmm.
But awareness is the key. See, so that's why we do these podcasts.
Exactly.
Because, when something comes up, I ask Dr. Angela, I'm like, hey, this is going on. Can you figure out the science of this for me? Because I don't understand what's going on with my brain. And, and this is what I'm struggling with. So this is, like I said, this is something that's kind of at the forefront of my life right now. And I'm not sure, how many other people that are listening to this are struggling with this. But now when you have like some science behind it, you realize that it is
You're not crazy.
You're not crazy. And it is a disease. And we have to treat it as such. We have to be kind to ourselves. And we have to, and it's a battle, but it's something that we can overcome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. They, I found some other studies. I was just like really looking at all this research. It was so fascinating to me.
I love that about you.
They did some studies on whether alcoholics versus non-alcoholics tend to prefer the sweet taste. Because that's kind of what you're saying. And that's kind of what this addiction transfer idea would get. Is that, okay, maybe we like sweets better because our alcoholic, our brain that's susceptible to alcoholism is looking for an addiction transfer. But this was very interesting. So they did a study of male alcoholics. So male alcoholics, and then the controls were men of the same age who were not alcoholics. And they were trying to find out if there was any difference in their preference for sweet taste. So they gave them like different solutions of sweetness. And they asked them what tasted, how these things were tasting to them. And what they found is that generally there wasn't any difference between these two groups, which doesn't make any sense given what you just told me and what we just heard about from the addiction transfer thing.
Like, don't you think that sweet drinks are more like something that women like? You know what I'm saying? If they wanted to do a control on, a test on, for this,
they should have.
I don't know. I just think they should have done women because,
I know,
it's not manly for a guy to have, like a foofy daiquiri. I mean, it's just not like those are women's drinks.
So you raise a very good point because a lot of research is done in men, and we don't know what's going on with women. But I do want to point out that they did find a difference in the alcoholics who had fathers who were also alcoholics.
Oh.
So those guys liked the sweet stuff better. It's like, it's called paternal family history of alcoholism. Tends to be associated with a higher preference for sweets. Is that interesting?
That is really interesting.
Paternal family history.
I do think that there should be some further testing on that, just because because I'm a girl and I want to know.
Yeah. Well, they found it in a lot of studies that if a person's father was alcoholic, they seem more sensitive to things that taste sweet, and it may manifest for some of them with an eating disorder.
Yeah.
So I'm going to read you a quote from a summary of one of the research reviews that was published in 2010. So this is a direct quote from the study. In the last 2 decades, research has noted that specific genes may underlie the sweet preference in alcohol and drug-dependent individuals, as well as in biological children of paternal alcoholics. Now, paternal alcoholics means the father is an alcoholic. There also appears to be some common genetic markers between alcohol dependence, bulimia, and obesity. And they name specific genetic markers, A1 allele and a dopamine 2 receptor gene. So there appears to be some actual genetics involved with this, and they're discovering which genes. Now, they also said, I didn't want to read the whole thing because it's all science, and you guys don't want that. But they also said there's a lot of different variability in this. There's a lot of different genes involved. So, but I just really want people to understand that, like, if you notice that your brain seems to be really sensitive, it's not like there's something wrong with you or your willpower. This is like biological, right?
Right.
So, yeah. So it's just something to really realize. Like some of us are
Yeah,
just
I
more
definitely
sensitive.
think that sugar addiction and alcoholism
Mm-hmm.
go hand in hand. I mean, like
Mm-hmm.
it's if you have a really sensitive brain to sugar and you are, going through some stress and you're overindulging, like it's really something to be aware of that,
Mm-hmm.
even if, some of our patients are listening to this, like it's a thing. Like I know it's a thing because I'm living it.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope, that me telling my story would help anybody else that might be struggling with it. But I know
Yeah.
that right now, I am having a really hard time with, giving up one thing and giving
Mm-hmm.
up the other thing. It's like I got
Mm-hmm.
to go cold turkey with all of it
Yeah. So
because
your brain is like
otherwise,
looking.
otherwise I'm going to be so pissed off at myself for
Mm-hmm.
going, back, sliding back so far, especially,
Yeah.
that now I have like more awareness, and know more of the
Mm-hmm.
science behind it. And I'm so
Mm-hmm.
glad, that you talked about this because I know I've been wanting to know like what the heck has been going on.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, so just,
I just feel like all of this science is really still in its infancy, though, too. Like, I just don't think we really get it. I don't think we
no, I
understand
don't think
enough
we really
about it.
get it.
Yeah.
No, I don't. But the more we talk about it
Mm-hmm.
and plus, and I just think like the world is so different than it was a couple years ago. And I think that so many more people have, overindulged in drinking. And I think so many more people have, overindulged in sugar and flour and,
Mm-hmm.
and all of that. And I do
Yeah,
believe that, that the, American food industry is taking advantage of that
for
of people's
sure.
vulnerabilities and
Yeah.
pushing this crap on us. And, it's
Mm-hmm.
time for us to fight back. And the way to do
Yeah.
that is just to, gather our community and make people
Mm-hmm.
aware.
Yeah.
So,
I couldn't agree with you more.
right.
Darn those makers
I
of
think
White
there's a lot
Claw.
of shame in it. I think that people,
Mm-hmm.
especially people that, have really successful careers or that, don't want anyone to know what's going on.
Yeah.
It's hard to talk about.
Yeah.
People are afraid to talk about this stuff. And,
Mm-hmm.
we need to not have judgment and, and be
Oh.
more open about, these
Mm-hmm.
situations. And so,
Yeah. There's so much shame when it comes to this stuff. So much
right,
shame. So much
right,
hiding. So much secretive behavior.
right.
Because people just like they don't know how to manage it, they just don't understand that this is biochemistry. It really is. So
No, and and even this last couple weeks at work, just kind of being open about my story or my struggles,
mhm,
like there's been, you know, patient after patient that says, "Oh my gosh, I'm so glad that you talked about this because I'm
mhm,
struggling with it. I didn't realize that, the sugar addiction and, this the alcohol, like what it does,
yeah,
people just aren't aware. And like I said, they're afraid to talk about it. So I'm really glad that we're talking about it
yeah,
now
me too,
and
me too.
getting some information out there.
Yeah. Now, have so I'm understanding that the White Claw thing is a really big, like it's
It's
a big
super
thing
popular.
among our
Like I was saying, I
patients.
mean, it's so popular. I'm gonna have to show you this. It's so popular that they make these things called brew mate, and there are coolers, like metal coolers that you put your White Claw in that keep your Claw cold, and they're just specially made for White Claws. Like they're because White
Oh
Claw
my
comes
gosh.
in, like its own sized can. So yeah, I mean, and you get it at the the bougie clothing boutique stores. And so, yeah,
Mhm,
it's like really trendy, but I think
mhm.
people are like overindulging and they don't realize, what it's doing to them. And that
Yeah.
it's so, and it's so, closely related to sugar addiction.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. And I mean, and I
Well,
didn't
in
know
my
that either
experience,
until, yeah, I did not realize myself until,
yeah.
I gave up one thing and then I just wanted to eat sugar so bad.
I know. Well, in my experience, those White Claws can go down really easily too because they just taste like sparkling water. You
They
don't even
taste
think
like
that you're
sparkling
drinking anything.
water. Yep.
Like you don't even realize you're drinking any alcohol. There's no
No, and
alcohol
like,
taste to it at
no,
all. It's like it
no.
tastes so sweet and innocent.
Yeah, and that's yeah, it is. It is, yeah. It's, it's a wolf in sheep's clothing, or actually
Exactly.
in brumate clothing.
All right. So I think that we have done a pretty good job on this podcast for helping people understand the difference or the similarities between alcohol and sugar addiction and all of this science. And really, I just really want people to understand, because they're always asking me, how much can I drink and still lose weight? And the answer is, I don't know exactly. But if you're drinking 2 or 3 glasses of wine every night, you're not going to lose weight.
No, and one thing I just remembered, Angela, is when I first started working for you, there was this handout that I found. It's like the 12 steps of what is it? Getting off of sugar. What is that handout?
12 steps to break your sugar addiction.
Yes, 12 steps to break your sugar addiction. And I was just like, wait, what? And so because the 12 steps of AA, and I kind of laughed about that, and I didn't really realize that. Okay, so this is going to come up in my future, and this is going to become a real thing. Like, I need to 12-step that sugar addiction now.
Well, it's not a 12-step process. By the time I figured out everything everybody needed to do, it turned out to be 12 different distinct things to do. I actually shortened it into 3 steps to break your sugar addiction.
Did you? Okay.
So I combined some of the steps. Yeah. So, but yeah. But the first step was, do not blame yourself. Do not feel badly about it. That was step 1. So get rid of the shame and guilt. That's step 1. So,
definitely.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So thank you so much for everything that you had to say about your own personal experience with this, Marchelle. This is awesome. And I hope that our listeners got a lot out of this particular podcast, because I think it's important to understand. And if you feel like you struggle with alcohol, if the idea of, having 2 or 3 drinks a night or more, and that feels like you're not able to have less than that, I don't want you to feel bad about it. Okay. So this is for our podcast listeners. I want you to do the best job you can to cut back. And then if you find that you're drinking and you can't stop, that means it's time to get some help. And you just need to go online and, you can contact your local AA, or you can contact like a drug, a chemical dependency office near you. But don't feel ashamed about getting help, because this might be exactly what you need. And it's really, really important to ask for help if you're struggling. Alcoholism is a disease. Obesity is a disease, and we need help with this stuff. So be sure that if you find that it's a struggle for you to cut back on this, that you get the help you need without shame. You got to do what you got to do for yourself and your health.
So just to add that, if you are trying to lose fat, I don't like to say lose weight anymore. I like to say lose fat, because you don't want to lose weight. You want to keep your muscle.
Yeah.
So that, and if you're doing Dr. Angela's program and you are struggling with losing fat, and you're eating the 30 grams of doing everything you're supposed to be doing, and you're struggling with that, and the scale is not doing what you think it should be doing, and you are having a couple glasses of wine, even 1 glass of wine a night, every night, makes a huge difference in weight loss. So I would cut out that glass of wine if you're trying to really, get some, make some progress.
And just maybe 1 or 2 nights a week instead of all 7, something like that. Yeah. Okay. So that is all for tonight, and we will see you all next week with another podcast. Take care, everybody. All right. Bye.
Hey, if you really want to lose weight and keep it off for good, your next step is to sign up for Dr. Angela's free weight loss course, where you're going to learn everything you need to get started on your weight loss journey the right way. Just head over to journeybeyondweightloss.com/free course to sign up. Also, it would be awesome if you could take a few moments and write a review on iTunes. Thanks, and we'll see you in Journey Beyond Weight Loss.